Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me today for an unusual video to talk in detail about last week's world record. Now yesterday I actually had some filming plans which had to be cancelled thanks to some atrocious weather, so it got me looking at the news from about a week ago of the SSC Tuatara breaking a production road car world record top speed going 331 miles an hour in one direction, making the return journey for the average over 300 as well at 301 for a record of an insane 316 miles per hour. That's actually also over the next barrier threshold of 500 kilometers per hour as well, a truly unbelievable feat. Now I wanted to shoot a video talking about this, talking about world records, talking about top speeds, so I started looking further at the video that was published of this run, of this drive, and it introduced quite a few more questions for me, especially with some further research and analysis, some things that might not necessarily be exactly as they seem, which today I'd like to talk about in detail. Let's start with a bit of backstory then to set some context to explain where I'm coming from, and in particular with the Shmi 150 channel. Now I've always had the tagline, living the supercar dream, sharing with you the experiences of luxury cars, supercars, hypercars and all things automotive, working on a very neutral basis with all manufacturers, with all car brands, from luxury car companies like Audi, BMW, Mercedes, to sports and supercars like Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, to the hypercar brands, Pagani, Rimac, the 300-mile-per-hour contenders, Koenigsegg, Bugatti, Hennessy, SSC. I'm unbiased between them. I don't have any financial ties to one of these companies. I'm not yet, at least, in the market for a 300-mile-per-hour car. Who knows what the future has in store? But I want to take a very neutral look at this to go through what we're looking at, the video that's actually in front of us, because top speed world records matter. Companies go taking part in motorsport series, spending huge amounts of money, breaking lap records, taking top speeds because it sells cars. It interacts with the market, it's top trumps. Customers want to have the fastest car, but is what they're going to get actually the car that you see? This matters, and often these records are called into question because of this. There are lots of conspiracy theories, people trying to dig in to try and understand what was done, was it actually achieved, is it actually the real car, are we looking at a real video? There are lots of questions that get asked, but this is the first time I would say I've ever watched one of these videos, and I've had enough questions that I wanted to share it with you, to talk about it in more detail, to share some of my findings and some of the findings that I've read from others as well, because top speed world records matter, and I'm not sure, as I said, if this is exactly what we're being presented and told that it actually is. The location of choice by SSC to do these runs with the Tuatara is actually a familiar piece of tarmac. It is the exact same road that just over 3 years prior, Koenigsegg had done their record at the time with the two-way average with the Agera RS of 277.9 miles per hour. Now the fascinating thing about that is it gives us two videos on the exact same stretch of road that we can compare a little bit later on. We'll get to that. But it's a road to the west of Las Vegas, in Nevada of course, in the USA, Nevada Highway 160. It's actually a dead arrow straight road for a long distance, a bit of a bowl. It actually goes downhill and then up on the other side, but it's a road out towards Pahrump, near to Spring Mountain, and actually a place I've driven myself when I was out there with my Ford GT, albeit I didn't have the roads closed, so I had to follow the speed limits. Not quite the same as going to the VMAX, but a perfectly suited stretch, closed for the purpose, where multiple cars have now done their top speed runs. One of the interesting things about the Tuatara run is it was done in the southeasterly direction, down towards Las Vegas, the faster run we should say, whereas the Koenigsegg's faster run was in the other direction, but we do have Koenigsegg's run as well, heading back down towards Las Vegas to give a bit of an overlay, to put these side by side. The records, of course, have been stepped up quite dramatically. Koenigsegg's runs back then, the faster run to the northwest was 284.55 miles an hour, the slower run to the southeast was 271.19 miles an hour, making the 277.9 average. The Tuatara's top speed of 331 is just a bonkers figure to begin with, 331.15 in the faster direction southeast, with the slower direction coming in at just over 301 going to the northwest for an average of 316.1. That's stepped the game up by 38.2 miles an hour. Now I'm not going to lie, this did initially grab my attention because these things tend to go in small increments. That's nearly 40 miles an hour faster. That's not just a small jump. And remember, this isn't on specific tyres. These are tyres rated for significantly lower speeds. This is This was quite a surprise to begin with. You'd think maybe the record would go up 5, 10, 15, 20 miles an hour at most. This is a gigantic leap. So it got me digging more into these runs to take a better look at them and of course to study the road a little bit further. This is where I would finally like to study this video, the published video of the top speed record run at 331 miles per hour in the southeasterly direction on the 160 towards Las Vegas. Now as we're going through it, we can do a series of very basic calculations, some super simple maths that everybody learns as a youngster, that distance equals speed times time. You might have had another way of learning it, but it's always correct. If you know the distance a car has traveled between 2 points and you know the time that it took, you can always work out the average speed that it must have been traveling through that section. Now this video gives a few interesting markers. Let's take a look at the map to go through this in some detail. Here we are to the west of Las Vegas. We have the 160 up towards Pahrump, and if we zoom in right here, you get to the intersection with Tecopa Road. This is where both Koenigsegg and SSC started their runs. You have a suitable parking area and you have the two separated carriageways, and this is where the local enforcement moved traffic so that it was all going down the opposite side of the road, leaving this side perfectly clear for the runs. Now in this case, we know it headed to the southeast, and you will see some very distinct medians. This is the first one, just here. We come down towards the second, and there are 3 of these that we're going to look at because they're very, very obvious in the video. There's no mistaking them. The road itself has actually been relaid in the years since the Koenigsegg video, but these haven't moved. You can look at the historical data on Google Maps and see exactly where they are, but they're very, very visible when you're watching the video. In fact, just to quickly show, you can see just here on the top right, the median is very, very obvious. There's no missing it. Yes, we can't be super precise with the exact moment with the moving camera angle, but we do have a pretty good idea to be close enough. You know, here it's about 307 miles per hour. But this is where it gets interesting. If we go to this view, to the satellite view with the medians, we have the start point, we have the first median, and this is where I'm going to use Google's measuring tool from here, measure distance, and click there. And we have a distance of approximately 1.13 miles. Yes, that could be very slightly out, but if it is, we're talking a couple of percent. We're not talking dramatically and huge numbers. If we then move and look between the second and the third medians to get this recording, it comes in at 1.41 miles. So we've got those 2 numbers between the first and second median and the second and third. And this is where, if we go back to the video, we know that this has just crossed the point for the fastest section between the second and third medians. It's well on the way, very high acceleration in 6th gear on the car, and we will talk about the gearing as well very shortly. This is where it hits the record. Now the interesting thing on the video is it pauses for just shy of 4 seconds, so we need to subtract that from the total time. Before it continues, it was at 307, obviously it's been up to 331, and now it's a gentle cruise, a lift off, taking it easy all the way until I can tell you it gets to the next median at about 242 miles an hour or so. We're going to see that in just a second, and you'll see how obvious it is there. Look at the left, there's the median, 241, 242, that's about the range. So if I take that video, put it into my editing program, and of course I edit a lot of videos to make these videos that you're watching, here, just make it a smooth transition, we get the time. Now that video clip, I'm going to show you some numbers here, which basically reveal all, gives us this. Between the first and second medians, we measured 1.13 miles. In that, there is no pausing. The video takes 22.64 seconds. That means the average speed is 179.7. Indisputable. Except it entered at the first median at 192, and it was accelerating all the way to the exit of that median at 307. So at all times, the telemetry data that we are given says that it is going above the average speed that we calculate. Now this can only mean basically one of 2 things. Either the video is slowed down, which would be a bizarre move and quite a significant slowdown. I'm totally estimating, but we would be talking about 30% or something. Or the telemetry data with the speeds that we're seeing both on the overlay in the digital edit, but also on the laptop screen in the car, because you can read those, are not correct. Now I will emphasize as well, the dashboard on the 360 view is actually blurred out. You can't see what the car's dashboard itself says. That makes no sense, but let's look at the second to third medians. Maybe that's just a glitch, right? We measured about 1.42 miles I had before. We have the total time including the pause. We'll take out the pause, which I've measured in frames to be precise. It's a 30 FPS video, 1/30th of a second per frame. The total time therefore 24.4, which gives us that average. But in the time that it should have been averaging 209.5, it went from 307 up to 331 and then lifted off to 242. So again, it's always going faster than the average speed, which is a mathematical impossibility. I'm not making that up. That's simple maths, which you can't dispute. It makes no sense that it can be faster. So this is just one thing that makes you think, okay, that's clearly not right. And you can look at all of the files yourself. You'll see exactly the same. So what else, what could this be? I want to take an approximation in my mind from the video that I'm looking at, ignoring the overlay data as to how fast this car was going. But there are also two other methods, one more visual and one mechanical, which lead towards the same kind of number. Now, based purely on the video, and remember, I don't have the full tracking information, it feels like the peak speed that this car reaches is around 280 miles per hour. Now, that is indisputably fast, and there are perhaps reasons why this couldn't be the actual run. Maybe there's been a bit of a mix-up with the edit. Maybe it has inadvertently been slowed down by mistake. Maybe this wasn't the final run itself to 331, but the laptop in the passenger seat showing the same information that we see on the overlays certainly suggests that it is. There are a few other confusing things. You can't see the speedo, it's blurred out, but it doesn't fully add up, which is why I'm questioning this and sharing some of these findings which people have helped find or helped lead the direction towards. Now, one other method to try and calculate it as well, if I show you back in the video, is that you can see the painted lines on the road. And in the US, on a road like this, they follow a very specific formula again. They are always painted 10 foot of white line, 30 foot of gap. This road is no different, and therefore if you watch the video back at a very slow speed, you can count how many lines there are, again get the distance, not relying on the medians, but it does completely add up if you'd like to check this yourself, and ultimately you're going to end up with the same speed. So again, about 280 miles per hour. This is the thing that's totally bizarre. Why is this video not what it seems? Why is what we're looking at not the run that it claims to be? And that's what I don't understand. Another thing for interest, let's take a look at the Tuatara run and the Koenigsegg Agera RS run. Like I said, the same piece of road. And there's an interesting video actually that's been brought to my attention that shows us a little bit more about this. And this is starting from the second median. So the Agera RS has already arrived at the second median. That's where the Tuatara meets it. So the two cars are now exactly in sync. We have the Tuatara actually at this time going a touch faster than the Agera RS. As you can see, over 300 miles an hour to 265. This is in real time from both videos. No dodgy syncing, no running of one faster than the other. But the ultimate result that you're about to witness, despite the Tuatara being up to 60 miles an hour faster, and even now still 40 miles an hour faster, and slowing down still faster, we reach the median, yet the Agera RS gets there significantly faster. That's not a little bit faster. That's the two videos overlaid next to one another with their telemetry data, where even though, yes, the Tuatara is now braking and is now going slower, but all the way up until the point where the Agera RS made the third median, the Tuatara was faster. It is impossible, again, mathematically, for a faster car to take longer to reach the same point. Even if it broke later, that doesn't matter. To have got there slower, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. And again, you can only question how? There's another small detail which really stands out to me as well. If we go back to the published video, as it's approaching towards the record top speed, you will notice that the dashboard is blurred. The speedo on the dashboard is impossible to read. Now, at the exact moment that it's at 331 on the telemetry, also on the laptop screen in the passenger seat, the dashboard, if you take a screenshot of this and work backwards from it to make it clearer, is actually reading 301. In the build-up period, it's going through the 290s, hits 300, and briefly shows 301. Now, this is very intriguing as well, because a production road car can never underread on the speedometer the speed that you're going. By law in the USA and in Europe and everywhere else, it is absolutely critical that a speedometer can only tell you over what you're doing and never under. There is always a factored in margin for error. And for example, in my cars, when I've been driving at high speed on the German Autobahn, de-restricted sections in my Ford GT, an American supercar as well, when I've had 202 miles per hour on the dashboard, my GPS telemetry data has told me about 190. It's quite a significant margin, especially at these much higher speeds. Now, a guess from this, purely guess, conspiracy theory here, if it's showing 301 on the dashboard, take off a couple of percent and you're in the 280s. Is it possible that that's perhaps, again, the speed that it's going, linking up with the video that we're actually looking at? I'm not quite sure why it's blurred. Perhaps if it is under reading because it's not a final production out on the roads car, that could be a reason why it's been blurred, just to avoid the confusion from it. But for me, that's actually added more confusion rather than eliminated any. Now, another thing to talk about, which is very technical, so I won't go into this in full detail, but the car runs SSC's own 5.9 litre twin turbocharged V8. On pump gas, it makes 1,350 horsepower. On E85, like Koenigsegg run, it makes 1,750 horsepower, which is massive. It has a 7-speed automated manual Cima gearbox. The gear ratios of the Cima gearbox are out there. You can look at the details, you can work out and therefore calculate from it, knowing as well what tyres the car is running. The standard stock fitment 335 rear tyres, the Sport Cup 2 30 profile 20 inch. There are photos of that from the day, and you can calculate therefore the maximum speed that the car can go in each gear based on its maximum rev limit, which is 8,800 RPM for this car. Now, we know they're running in 6th gear because after this run, on the deceleration phase, you see Ollie, my friend driving it, shift up into 7th gear, and he's then notified over the radio that he's gone 331 because, of course, he's looking at a dashboard which we believe at the time is, or I think they believed at the time was incorrect. And he goes into 7th gear. So this run is entirely in 6th. He's even confirmed, actually, that it's in 6th gear as well. It's waiting for the moment of the news, because it's quite cool, of course, the excitement of having broken the top speed and having set a new record. And this is where you can then see the dashboard. So you can actually calculate some of the revs as well from seeing the RPM. So with this gearbox and this engine and these tyres and these configurations, this car in 6th gear on the red line, 8,800 RPM, would be going 293 miles per hour. If it's a little bit shy, which it looks like it is in the video, and Ollie also did an interview where he said he thought there was a little bit more to go, that would again put it in the low 280s. A bit more to go, a bit shy of the red line. Mechanically, that's indisputable. Now, the reason to use 6th, not 7th, you might be wondering, is because 6th gear is already basically an overdrive. 5th gear is the closest to the 1-to-1 ratio in this car. It's already just beyond. 6th is a start of an overdrive. A 7th gear is another overdrive, which means to be able to break through the power threshold with the components, they would pretty much likely shred up. To have done that speed in 6th would also have to be at, I think, about 10,400 RPM, which again, with this engine configuration, it probably wouldn't survive as well. Now, I'm not the full technical-minded guy, but I've been speaking to people who are experts in this field, and they've told me this data, which I'll put down below as well to read and have in more clarity. But again, we're pointing more facts, whether it's the painted lines, the speedo, the medians, or the gear ratios, all pointing to 280s. I'm trying my hardest to find reasons, but you can see where this is taking me. What happens next then, and what does this actually mean? Because it has a big impact on this end of the industry in general. It's a video that I didn't set out trying to come up with a conspiracy theory. That's never been the intention. And in fact, when they announced the record, I even posted a congratulatory message because that's my friend Ollie Webb actually driving the car, and I've met some of the team that are working on the event, putting together the production and everything to do with it. But it doesn't add up to me. There are questions that are open, and I'm sure you guys have some of these questions now as well. But when brands go for top speed records, when they know that there is going to be this much attention, this many eyes on it, there needs to be a backup data device, and then a backup for the backup, and even a backup for the backup for the backup for the main data device, so that there can be no questions left about it. It doesn't add up. And if you take some of the other videos, like Koenigsegg's video on the same road, if you do the simple mathematics we did earlier with that video, you get the right numbers. You get the numbers that they say. So why don't you with this? I'm hoping there's something I've overlooked, and I would love to hear from anybody who might have some proper insight as to what that could actually be. What is it about this that we haven't got right, because it's not just one question. If there was one question, I guess you would ignore it and just pretend that you just didn't understand. But it's question after question after question. And let's think more about this. You know, Bugatti launched the Chiron Supersport 300 Plus last year, the first production car to go 300 miles per hour, which they sold 30 units of. The customers thought they were buying the fastest car in the world. Is this faster now, or is this not faster? Does that have an impact? You know, will customers pull deposits to purchase Tuataras based on something that could not be genuine? I don't know, and these are all open questions, and I know it's the same for other companies. And then beyond that, there's the simple fact that we're now driving with a step up of 38.2 miles per hour, which means people are getting into cars next time this is done to maybe aim for 350, and this is really raising the risk and danger stakes. You know, stepping up such a significant amount, not 5 miles an hour, not 10 miles an hour, is a major thing. And I know for Ollie driving the car, this was a big deal. This was a big deal. To drive at these kind of speeds is, I can't even imagine. I've driven at 210, 220 miles an hour, and just thinking that the step up from there is the motorway speed limit again. It's just gigantic performance and numbers. And the Tuatara is no doubt a very, very fast car. But we need to get some answers to this. We need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to understand why this video isn't what it seems, because I want this record to be correct. I want it to stand, but I need to see something more than this to confirm it for me. So there are my thoughts. Please do give me some feedback. I'd love to hear if there's something glaring that we've missed across the whole thing. But for now, let me know. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you very soon. Cheers.